We're going to start off with another speaker that we had 3 years ago as a keynote, Neil Young, the musician. And he liked it so much he came back this past year and did another keynote for us to follow up on what he learned over the 3 years. But let's start off with this keynote first, Brian. Thanks. We have a very special guest today, and this was 3 years in the making. So it's really an honor to have one of the best, I think, not only musicians, but performance enthusiasts in the industry, and certainly knows everything there is to know about cool. So please welcome Neil Young to the podium.
Great to be here. Thanks, John. Thanks for SEMA for inviting us to be here to tell our story, which is kind of a fun story about just our idea of what we could do. I'm not trying to say that what I want to do is what America is going to want to do, but this is what we did. And first of all, we did it because I love my car. It's a huge car. I didn't want to give up the car, and I think a lot of people feel the same way about their big cars. I think they like their big pickup trucks, and they like their SUVs, and they like their large luxury cars. I used to get about 10 miles to the gallon with my car, and I left a dark spot on the ground right behind it every time I fired it up, and it was a carbon footprint that you could actually see.
But anyone who was out at South by Southwest a couple weeks ago? Neil Young was introducing PonoCast, his new bringing back. I call it taking the digital out of audio, but put it in the functionality of analog into digital. But he was wearing a SEMA jacket that we gave him, thanks to Tim Sasanian, and a very cool jacket. He said it's one of his favorite jackets. But if you go to YouTube, that video is at YouTube from 3 years ago. But he's working on another movie where he's built this into the American Masters series, I think. Thank you, Brian. To build it in, and you can see his 3 videos that he did at the SEMA show this past year. And the cool thing about 3 years ago was, and kind of like the old Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right? When's the second best time? Now. And it's great that you guys are here, and women are actually here to do that. Planting that seed, if you will, of the SEMA garage and what SEMA can do for you, the resources, methodologies, and tools, that's what we want to get across. Well, when Neil came to the show 3 years ago on his team, that vehicle, the 59 Lincoln, which is a biogas turbine, gets about 80 miles a gallon, equivalent about 600 horsepower. It burned down to the ground because of faulty systems integration. Some of the things that weren't quite, let's say up to the quality that Neil would have expected from some of the people he had working on that car. But Neil didn't stop there. It was what did Gary talk about? Fail and fail fast, fail fair. Neil said, well, we'll do it again. He gathered some of the SEMA members, particularly AVL, and you'll hear about NVIDIA from Gary. That's going to be part of the next 59 Lincoln that he's putting together. And he rebuilt that thing, and he brought it to the show, and he told that story. So it's a fascinating story if you see it on YouTube. We'll actually have that up at the SEMA YouTube channel starting next week. But fascinating story of some of the SEMA partners that rallied to help him build the 59 Link Volt all over again. You see the ones on the far right, that's the Deep Orange vehicle. Stuart's going to talk a bit about that. Deep Orange is the project vehicle that you saw in the video earlier that the Clemson students have to work on. The PhD students, it's mandatory that they work on that project vehicle. It's from the floor up, brand new vehicle, every year architecture. I think Joe Gross from Kicker, you've been involved with everything since Deep Orange 1, right? And it's up to Deep Orange 6. I believe Deep Orange 6 is Toyota coming up, so you'll see those at the SEMA show. But it's your chance to get on board those vehicles. If you saw the rocker panel in that, you'll see in one of the slides later, there's about 25 SEMA companies that are working on Project Orange. Great way to get exposure. MST, Todd Peterson, with the Brainwave product for integrating a lot of the systems and components on the vehicle. Great opportunity for you to get that exposure. And then certainly the link flow we just talked about. A couple key messages. Designing for technology, and Gary covered this well, requires new ways of thinking. I call it design thinking and social thinking. Design thinking is the product content. And I tell you that's important, but it's not the prerequisite. Social thinking drives the brand and the consumer context. How many folks were here last year? Wow. The content is certainly important, as I said, but the context is even more important. It's not about the technology, it's about the connection and how people use technology that drives the disruption in technology. No one asked for their car to be connected to the internet. And 20 years ago, no one asked for their phone to be connected to the internet. Yet, again, those waves and those S-curves that Gary talked about certainly drove those disruptions to that, but it's the consumer adoption of that. So going that, the design thinking and the social thinking go hand in hand. You have to do what I call going to the gemba, the front line. Genchi Genbutsu is basically what the Japanese call it. Get off your ass, go to the front line and learn it. You don't pay a consultant. Focus group is dead. You can't pay people to tell you what they need. As Steve Jobs said, they don't know. But if you put it in front of them and they start using it, then you know. I'm sure, Gavin, you'll be talking about that as well, right? A lot of cool stuff happening there. And again, you can't fake true cool. Again, it's about the connecting, not the technology. Technology drives those behaviors, but it's the consumer adoption. And the race to define the future of the vehicles is on. When we get to the forum panel, you're going to hear a lot of different perspectives of SEMA companies like MSD, traditional SEMA company that's going into the future. I'd say it's more of the transformational stuff that Gary talked about, where MSD is going, that Todd's doing. And then you can hear from NVIDIA, from Danny Shapiro, of what NVIDIA is doing with GPUs, graphic processing units, becoming the heart of like the Tesla 17-inch display and other vehicles. And it's being, again, another Japanese term is wako duki. Anyone hear of that? Any Japanese folk? Good. What's it mean?
It's the soul, the spirit of driving.
Beautiful. The soul, the spirit of driving, the excitement, that adrenaline, heart pumping. It's like watching the movie Rush or Le Mans over again. It's fantastic. And that's really what we're entering into, I think, the next generation. Very exciting. We never had the chance to have Steve Jobs at the SEMA show, but I think he summed up very well in the quotes there. I won't read through all that, but great technology is invisible. You don't see it. It's transparent. But again, it's how you use it. You think about the Macs, and the Lisa, and the Apple, and everything that he was instrumental in. If he had his chance, and Miles Kovacs said this, he said just about every OEM was trembling in their boots if Steve would have developed the iCar, because that would have changed our industry as well. He made basically computers cool, then he made phones cool. He certainly would have contributed to a new element and a new dimension of making cars cool. Again, I mentioned, I think the great quote, I think, which was the theme for us today from Bob Dylan, was that basically what Detroit created was the first and became an inspiration to the rest of the world. Detroit made cars, and cars made America. That was a great slide you had, Gary, with the Eisenhower era, the building of the freeways, and allowed, if you will, the automotive lifestyle, which is really what we are here at SEMA. SEMA is certainly the largest, and I call it the greatest show on wheels, but it's all about the automotive lifestyle as well as the automobile itself. In this case, the technology that goes into the car as well. Again, Neil Young, we don't have him here today, but I think the quote from Bob Dylan and building into the segue to Stuart. I'm going to give you a quick overview. Before Stuart comes up, though, and Stuart is the chairman of transportation design at Art Center. Any graduates from Art Center here? Excellent, excellent. Good. That's why, good. So you got some groupies, Stuart. That's fantastic. That's excellent. And I'm being from Detroit, I'm biased. I think, between CCS, College for Creative Studies, and Art Center, two of the best damn design schools in the world, right? And certainly very great automotive connections, I think, which is kind of cool. And Dr. Paul Van Hoven's couldn't be here, but Paul is the counterpart to Stuart. It's basically engineered at Clemson, but it's designed at Art Center by the students that Stuart and his team work with. Real quickly, it's, again, Gary covered a lot of this, the on-demand challenge, all the things you see there. Those are the trends, if you will, being built into Deep Orange. I mean, that picture there is perfect. Joe Gross knows that well, right? I mean, that's what a vehicle looks like. And these engineers love it. That's their world. It's systems integration. They thrive on that. They're not afraid of that. Practice-based engineering, again, being the gemba, the front lines. These are tools, methodologies, and people that you have access to help you understand it. You don't have to go it alone. Going it alone is a no-go. Deep orange, as mentioned, the project vehicle, it's all those things right there manifested in that. Stuart's going to tell you more about that, particularly from the design perspective. It's your chance to get on board those vehicles. And each year has a specific theme to it. Again, the students have to do it all. It's a strategic partnership, again, using their whole brain. These are the course curriculums there. These folks at Clemson are car enthusiasts. When you go out in the parking lot, you see Mustangs, you see Camaros, you see Porsches, you see all the cars, again, that I think a lot of you folks drive and certainly have parts and services on. The design students, this is what basically Stuart's going to take us through. This is kind of cool how they go through the storyboarding or the theming of each of the deep orange vehicles. And again, you can have a big part in that as well as manifestation of your parts on those vehicles. I thought this was great. And this kind of fits your stuff, Gary, because again, I mentioned the product technology is the content, but the branding is the social context. This is the social context you start first with to integrate to your technology. And again, we're going to hear a lot more of that on the panel as well. This is one of their theme models, as Rivka calls her, the Monster Girl, Monster Energy Girl. And I believe she's from Spain. We do a lot of what we call spider charts or radar charts to actually show you the trade-offs that your products can make on the vehicle. So it isn't like, again, pass or fail. It's like, what do you give up to get that? And IBOC used a lot of these in terms of vehicle dynamics of basically the ride and handling on the Ford Focus that we talked about earlier. And with we actually call the product DNA, or the brand character of the vehicle. And again, it's ideation, creation through the students, the storyboarding, and again, open invitation. Any of you, if you're ever in the Greenville, South Carolina area, you can go to Clemson. And students will be glad to take you through a tour of everything that you're seeing here. Pretty cool stuff. Game changing, lean enabling, unique straps, I mean, all that kind of stuff. It's learning. That's actually Chris D'Amico, the gentleman you saw before. They put a chassis together. One of the years was this Deep Orange 3, what they call industrial origami. A SEMA company in Troy, Michigan. No welds, all folded together. Yet had the structural integrity to pass the federal regulations and be roadworthy. Pretty cool. All developed by the students. There's Joe, right? He's the one with the hair. Yeah. But Kicker's been involved with positioning the speakers, the synthetic sound, lots of different things on just about every Deep Orange vehicle. So you could too. This was a 6-seat passenger car. I think it was Deep Orange 3, was that? And Fred Naiman did the exterior to that, and I think we got the buck showing up, but 6-seat passenger car. And you can see the SEMA companies all along the bottom there. They're very proud of what they do, and as they go into industry, they are your disciples, your advocates. That was the design. And these vehicles go all over the, well, I say world, but all over the country for sure. LA Auto Show. Art Center has its classic design, I believe, in October. I think you've had the October 26th. Deep Orange vehicles are shown there. There was one up at Traverse City, Michigan at the management briefing seminars. That if you go online, just Google Deep Orange. Automotive News did a great set of YouTube videos on Deep Orange 3, and they called it the next big thing. And not so much the car, but the students, and what the students learn, and where they're taking their career skills. Again, lots of performance. Again, I mentioned earlier, the product performance development is basically what Clemson's all about. Deep Orange 4, 5 is the Chevy, and 6 is the Toyota that I mentioned. All different themes, different social contexts, if you will, for the vehicles. Welcome you to get involved with any of those.